Okay, so we're in Premiere and I have a new sequence open. I'm working at 24 frames per second, 1920 by 1080. It's probably a good idea to open up a new sequence and then you can copy and paste your project into your mostly motion timeline at a later time. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Premiere's Preferences. Now, typically, when you open your preferences, you'll look for a box called Still Image Default Duration. And that's because when you bring in a still image, Premiere has no idea if it's a title, if it's a photograph, if you're making kind of a slideshow, or if you're doing kind of a frame-by-frame animation or stop motion. So it comes in at 150 frames, which is several seconds long, and is too slow and boring. So if we look at our chart, we see that we want to bring that number way down. So I'm going to actually choose 3 frames. That means one JPEG is going to last over 3 frames, and that will give me about 8 frames per second. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And now I've copied all of my JPEGs from my SD card onto my hard drive. So I'm no longer working on my SD card. And I'm going to go ahead and select all of these. Now they have really unfriendly names and numbers, and I'm going to make sure I absolutely don't change those numbers at all. Even if you go into Photoshop in the interim, which you can do, and you can crop them or do some batch color correction or some other kind of editing that you can't do in Premiere, keep the names the same. You know, you can copy the whole folder if you don't want to hurt the originals, but make sure that you overwrite the same name because they'll come into Premiere in the exact order that you shot them in if you don't. So if you keep the names the same. So I'm going to select all, Command A, or I can hold down Shift and select the first one and scroll down and select the last one. And then I'm going to click and drag that whole thing over into my timeline. It may come in really small because of the default. And I just hit the plus key and zoom in. And that's looking really good. I have a green line here, which means it's the exact resolution that I shot it in. So I'm going to hit play. Okay, so that actually looks pretty good. 3 frames is actually a good motion for this. I might do a couple things though to tweak it. One is these are tons of tiny little clips, so I can go in and edit them just like I can any other clip. So I'm going to go ahead and make the last frame really long just to kind of stay on it. Now if I didn't like that frame rate, I might just select everything, delete everything, go into preferences and change my frame rate here, make it 2 frames long, which will make the whole thing faster, or I might make it 5 frames, which will make it slow down. But I can also do a shortcut. So I think the beginning was good with the rattling, but then it kind of went a little fast. So what I think I'm going to do is zoom in on that and select a whole bunch of frames. That's good. And I'm going to right click on all of those frames, and I'm going to go into a little feature called Speed Duration and click on that, and this dialog box comes up. Now you can see that it knows my duration here. Um, so what I'm going to do is I can just click on that and I can change it. And I'm going to change that to 5 frames long, and that will slow down the domino part, but keep the rattling shell in the beginning the same. And I could do that, but it's going to create a bunch of gaps in between all my little teeny tiny frames. So if I select this little magic box here, it will actually delete any spaces that may occur from changing this number. So watch my timeline when I do this, and you see how these frames have expanded and it's pushed this back. I got a tiny little bit of rendering that it needs here, and I can go ahead and render that, but it's probably fine. Just look at it. There, and now I can get kind of a better viewing of what's actually going on, and then it stays as a still on the last image. Okay, and so I might just hold that in because that's long enough. And now what I want to do is, these are a lot of little pieces. So I think I want to go in and lighten some of that. You can go in and tweak them. You can layer them. I could key out the black, although it will key out the black dots. So there's all sorts of things I could do with this. I could leave it as it is. I could put sound on it. But if you want, even if I just want to edit it, give it a transition with another video, it's what you really need to do is to then go in and go ahead and export it. As soon as you got really the frame rates and the frame lengths the way you want it, go ahead and export that, and give it a name and everything, and then bring that back into Premiere and add effects, add transitions, mix it with other clips, and have fun.